I could trust myself with any one of them Londoners. Any one of them. Can I now? Can I? No.
After the chart-topping success of their 1970 record Lola vs. the Power Man, the Kinks were riding high. Their contract with record labels Pie and Reprise had come to an end, and they were free of the pressures the label had provided to release hit single after hit single. The new freedom the band had as a result of this contract gave them a free pass to create whatever they wanted, which allowed frontman and chief songwriter for the Kinks, Ray Davies, to take some risks and step away from what the band was known for. While the record label swap was taking place, Ray was witnessing the early gentrification of London. Places like his home Muswell Hill were getting completely demolished and rebuilt, along with lots of historic parts of London. Ray was pissed off at the impact this upheaval was having on his family and loved ones, and decided to write a concept album to vent his frustrations. Speaking to Circus in 1972, Ray says about the subject, "It's just very disturbing to see this happen. They're knocking down all of the places in Holloway and Islington and moving all of the people off to housing projects in new towns." The result of all these frustrations was Muswell Hillbillies. Widely considered one of the Kinks' top albums today, the album acted as a vessel for Ray to transfer his anger through on the destruction of what he once called home. With simple compositions complemented with a country and bluegrass stylisation, Muswell Hillbillies was a complete departure to the Kinks' usual output and stands out among the discography as a result. Upon leaving Reprise, the Kinks had signed with record label RCA in 1971. Finally free from their previous oppressors, this new coalition provided the band with more autonomy than they were used to, not to mention $1 million advance which funded the creation of Kinks' own studio, Conk, in Hornsey. Despite this positive forward movement for the band, Ray was busy grieving the past. The aforementioned destruction of the London that he grew up in, along with advances in society occurring at the time, in the late 60s and early 70s, were becoming a drag to Ray. Ray was watching ordinary folk, like his grandma, shifted out of their houses and into cramped flats. Quote, "My gran used to live in Islington, in this really nice old house, and they moved her to a block of flats, and she hasn't got a bath now. She's got a shower because there isn't room for a bath, and she's like 90 years old, she can't even get out of the chair, let alone stand in the shower. It's just a lack of consideration for people. The government people think they are taking them into this wonderful new world, but it's just destroying people." It's incidents like these that inspired Muswell Hillbillies, watching the destruction of old, rejecting the new, and reminiscing about simpler times. It's quite apt how such a sentiment remains relevant in modern day. Seeing a connection between the downtrodden US blues and the working class in the UK, Ray made an unorthodox choice to incorporate elements of bluegrass, folk and country to the record to accompany his musings of working class struggle. The band brought in a dedicated horn section, the Mike Cotton sound, to aid in the recording of the LP. The Mike Cotton sound had been around from the early 50s, originally a trad jazz outfit but evolving into more soulful territory, and were hired by the Kinks in 71, but they continued to stay until the mid-70s. The country vibes on the record can be seen as an extension of these working class themes too, with a focus on roots sounds like lots of acoustic instrument, blues and country influences like fingerpicking and slide guitar all over the place. Even the instrumentation rejects modernity. Such a middle finger to modern life wouldn't have been possible without the freedom given by RCA. Ray says about this, "My response was to turn around and make the most basic record possible. With Muswell Hillbillies, the band became responsible for its destiny for the very first time. We'd changed labels. We'd finally begun touring America again. It was a whole new image for the Kinks. We were working towards making albums, rather than just doing pop singles like we had in the past." The album art depicts a scene we're all familiar with in one way or another, a bar in an old school pub. This is the Archway Tavern, an old pub round the corner from the Archway tube station, and it's still there today surprisingly, but unfortunately looks a little different. I think that's another indicator that perhaps Ray was right to be worried. The use of pub imagery is a great way to further link themes to tradition and working class roots. Pubs are a great British institution and a huge part of our culture, and this pub in particular has been around since 1816. And to segue from pub chat to a song about the dangers of booze as a coping mechanism for the pressures of modern life. Track 5, Alcohol, is a stripped-back warning tale with almost pantomime/oompa vibes throughout. The track showcases the Mike Cotton sound and is a good example of the stripped-back production on the record, which for Alcohol they wanted it to sound like it was recorded in a dingy pub. Ray said about recording Alcohol, "At one point we put up a mic in the hallway and then had the horn section go off into the bathroom and play in there." Rolling Stone's review of Muswell Hillbillies points out the stripped-back production as a flaw in their review from 1972, stating Ray's buried vocals as a particular sticking point. If you ask me, the raw production is part of what makes the album. The rest of the album is also solid gold social commentary, rooted in the reality that the band was experiencing. Holiday is a particular favourite of mine, with lyrics of a man's escape from the hustle and bustle, to the beach, away from the big city stresses, complete with accordion, banjo, guitar and piano, which paint a great picture of Ray's beach breakaway. Here Come the People in Grey describes mysterious governmental figures forcing people out of their homes in an effort to demolish the area, much like the events surrounding the Davies' grandma. Title track and closer, Muswell Hillbillies, was written from the perspective of someone who's heard about America through films and telly, but has never actually been, and idolises escaping Muswell Hill to a sunny West Virginia. It's clear that these themes of rejection and frustration are consistent throughout. Since RCA were no longer hounding the band to create hit singles, the Kinks took full advantage of this and released no singles at all to promote Muswell Hillbillies, in the UK specifically, and as a result, the album didn't chart in the UK. In the US, however, 20th Century Man was released as a single, peaking at 106 on the Billboard charts, and the accompanying album only hit 100. 20th Century Man is another track with themes of rejection and forced modernity and gentrification. Ray calls to a love of the past and a rejection of the future, praising Shakespeare and Da Vinci and shutting down the increasing bureaucracy and uniformity of the world.
Ain't got no ambition, I'm just disillusion. I'm a 20th century man, but I don't want let it see. Yeah, I don't wanna be.
So, the record's lack of commercial success is one thing, but at the time, the reviews were largely mixed. Record Mirror says in December 71, sadly, the fascinatingly clever lyrics of Ray Davies seem to have been lost, but there's plenty of beaty sound and some very different instrumental backing. And Rolling Stone's review in February 72, overall, Muswell Hillbillies is a weird tangent for the group that have always been at their best when rocking their arses off. But the album succeeds where it does, largely on its combination of cynicism, tenderness and wit that the Kinks have long been known for. In an article on BMI, speaking on the album and the career of the band, Ray says, "We made Muswell Hillbillies and it kind of set everything back a few years, I suppose. It was a classic case of not delivering what people think you're going to deliver, and I was very happy to do that." Retroactively, Muswell Hillbillies is regarded as one of the Kinks' best records. AllMusic gave it a 4.5 out of 5, Pitchfork gave it an 8.9, and Drowned in Sound gave it a perfect 10. I think in the modern day, this album is almost more relevant than it perhaps was before. All of Ray's fears have come to fruition and snowballed into something beyond what the world could ever imagine in the 70s. Muswell Hillbillies is a masterpiece from start to finish. 45 minutes of Ray's finest, weaving working class poetry into songs that paint a clear picture of the anguish he felt at the time. Despite its lack of commercial success, the record is held in high esteem and regarded as one of the band's best projects.
Muswell Hillbilly boy, but my heart